Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Three Girls, One Monthly Catch Up, or more like one tri-monthly catch up because we're a little behind. Life,
quarterly catch up, but like not
Sort
quite
of, but not an
yeah,
actual
Yeah,
official quarter.
yeah.
yeah. Life was lifing. It's fine. So yeah, we're gonna take the time to catch you up on what we were up to from the months of September through November. And our typical categories will be timestamped in the description box. So let us get started. The first topic, we usually do decks that we worked with. So Heather is up first. What decks have you been working with the last few months?
So I had a couple of months, October and November. Those are the 2 months I want to say.
I'm sorry, that was fantastic.
I don't fucking know. I don't know. Anyway, I had a couple of months where I had an interesting time because the first month I worked with the Cracked Amethyst Tarot, and I combined it with an Oracle deck, the Thistledown Oracle deck.
Oh,
And as I was working with them throughout the month, I was very aware of the fact that normally I like to work with decks with people in, and the two combined did not have a single person in
yeah.
any of the decks. And so that was a really interesting experience, and I really enjoyed it and found myself connecting in completely different ways than I do normally with tarot. And I thought, well, maybe it's the decks. So let's try a little experiment. And so in November, I worked with the Mindscapes Tarot, which also has it has people in it, but the people are teeny tiny, the people in it. And it's not like people. So this one is another lovely deck, which everybody's seen. The lighting in here is shit anyway. So if you can see this deck, well done. But so I worked with this, which I really enjoyed so much more than I expected to. But I combined it with one of my favorite Oracle decks, which is the Sacred Destiny Oracle. And again, no people. So I had a non-people-y month, tarot-wise, not life-wise, but tarot-wise. And again, I had a really, really good experience with just not having any people in my decks for a couple of months. And now I've run out of decks that have no people in. So I'm doing something a little bit different in December. But yeah, I just really, really enjoyed myself. Really, really enjoyed myself.
Awesome. Do you think that opens you up to then getting more decks that are not people-y?
Yeah, definitely. Because I also had, I know when I worked with the Tildwick Tarot, which also has no people in, I had a very surprising experience with that one as well. So I have
Earth
learned.
doesn't have very many people in it.
Huh?
The Majestic Earth doesn't have very many people in it.
Yeah. And I have learned through YouTube, TarotTube, to never say I don't like X, because I don't have a fucking clue what I like. It's becoming very clear to me. I think I'm not going to like something, and then I really do, or I think I'm going to love something and then it doesn't work.
Right.
So, but yeah, I don't have a huge amount to say about decks other than that, because I didn't do a lot of in-depth reading and stuff. It was more just like daily pulls and maybe a couple of 3-card spreads with an oracle or whatever. But I had a really, really good couple of months.
So for me, I did not have a very tarot-y last couple of months, just in general. I mean, I'll get more into it when we start talking about what's been going on in our lives, but I've had a combination of like very, very busy time at work over the last couple of months. Plus, I've been doing all of these like projects around my house, which is why my background looks different, because this is the same place I normally film in, but I've like completely rearranged all my furniture in my rooms and everything. So I just haven't spent a ton of time with tarot in general, but I do have a couple of decks to show. So one of them that I did do some work with was the Endless Tarot. And I've talked about this a little bit before. I've been and I still haven't worked with it with the Oracle yet. I don't know why I haven't done that yet. I really need to get my act together and do that. But I did do some work with this deck, and I don't know, I was just feeling a little bit like underwhelmed, I guess. and and I think I talked about this in the Three Girls, didn't I? I
Hmm.
think I did.
Yeah, you
I
did.
like
Yeah.
can't remember what's happened in the last few months.
Hmm.
Like so, um, the deck is beautiful. But for some reason, it just doesn't hit for me the same way the Oracle does. Like the tarot doesn't hit the same way the Oracle does, and so it's like I want to love it, but it just isn't giving me that same magical feeling that I get from the Oracle. And I think I talked to the Three Girls about sort of like my hypothesis as to why I think that is, but um it is a lovely deck and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. Like it's a perfectly readable deck. The artwork is beautiful. There are many things to enjoy about it, but it just, I don't know, I had such a special experience with the Oracle that the tarot just didn't not quite hitting the same way. Feels a little disappointing, even though at the end of the day it's still a perfectly lovely tarot deck, and like I've had a nice time
Hmm.
working with it. So I'm that's the sort of place I am in with that particular deck. So that is, again, that is the Endless Tarot, and that was a Kickstarter. I was super excited about it. And then I got it in and was just sort of like, oh, this is fine. That's just sort of how it felt. So that's one deck I worked with. I also, and I had a much more fun time with this one, worked with this deck. This is Todd Alcott's Sci-Fi Tarot. And this is a deck that I saw on Marlena's channel and just immediately thought it was so freaking delightful. The only thing I don't like about it are the backs because it like has work. I hate it when they do that. But this deck is a joy. Like it's basically all of the cards are made to look like, pulp comic or paperback sci-fi covers from like, the 50s and 60s and 70s, and it's really funny, it's tongue in cheek, it's cute, it's nostalgic, and it's just a fun time. Like I just had a good time with it. It brings back thoughts of reading old sci-fi paperbacks that I got at the used bookstore, so this one was just a fun time. I didn't pair it with anything, and I haven't been doing a ton of readings or like daily draws or anything like that. I used it to do a few readings, and just like they made me smile, and that's about what I have to say about it. It just I haven't had a very, like I said, tarot-y couple of months. I did get in one new deck, which was very kindly gifted to me by Sarah, formerly Waterchild Tarot, who isn't on TarotTube anymore. But she gifted me a deck that I wasn't sure that I would ever want for a long time. This is this Shimmering Veil Tarot by Sarah Conway. I've always thought that it was a very beautiful deck, so I decided I would give it a try, even though I wasn't sure how I would feel about it. The artwork of it is stunning. I do enjoy working with the deck. Like, I think it's really nice. I've only had it for a couple weeks at this point, so, I haven't done a ton of work with it or anything like that, but it's really beautiful. Like, it's a very, very beautiful deck. Like, it reads really well. I think, it has a bit more of a, I don't want to say abstract because it's not really abstract, but it has this more sort of like impressionisty, painterly kind of quality to the artwork that I do actually really enjoy. And yeah, I think it's lovely. So I have been working with this one for a couple weeks, and yeah, it's going pretty well.
You'll have to update us when you start working with the Endless Tarot and the Endless Oracle
Yeah.
together, how
Yeah.
that goes, because I want to say it was Robin from Robin's Reflections. She
Mhm.
had mentioned that it bothered her that the colorway of the Oracle
It's
differed from the
slightly
tarot,
different. Slightly different. Yeah.
given that they're supposed to work interchangeably in Muriorama style. So
Mhm.
she's like, kind of bothers me, but
Mhm.
I mean, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful separately. But so you'll
Mhm.
have to let me know if that bothers you or
Yeah.
just and how it works in general.
Yeah. I really need to try. I need to try that because I have a feeling like, because like I said, there's nothing wrong with it as a tarot deck, and
Mhm.
maybe if I have it in that context with the Oracle deck, it'll make a difference in how it feels to me. Like I feel like there's actually a reasonable chance that that might be the case, but we'll have to try it.
Okay.
So
I actually worked with a lot of decks the last 3 months. And obviously I won't go into all of them, but September was devoted a lot to Deck Connectors Club, which is something that Jay from Iridescent Tarot and Aaron from Witch of Saturn have started up where they do these episodes, um, connecting or reconnecting with the deck through this kind of like 5-day process. So it's week long, and each day they've assigned like a dedicated activity to work with that deck. And so I decided to do that, and it was a lot of fun to have like specific activities to do that I didn't have to think up on my own. And so I did that with the Gentle Tarot. And then I did that with the Ethereal Visions, which they both had me as a guest so that the three of us, talk about that. And then the Cracked Amethyst, so I would say it's supposed to be a week long. And with the Gentle Tarot and the Cracked Amethyst, because this was new to me, I devoted more like 2 weeks to it, and it was a lot of fun. And the Cracked Amethyst, I gotta say, I really love this deck, and I'm so glad to have it. And I worked with it alongside some days the Idiosyncra deck and the what is the Oracle, the Amethyst Oracle, and they paired well together. And so I'm just really loving this deck. And I feel like I'm the same way, that typically I do like to have a focal point, like people, mainly people or even animals, right?
Mm.
So, but it's just one of those exceptions, and I probably have several exceptions in my collection. But yeah, I love it. I'm glad that I have, like, okay, this is a bitch to shuffle, I gotta say. I was like, I don't even.
I've bent one of the cards where I've tried to shuffle it, and
Oh,
I've actually bent one of the cards, and
yeah.
it's like got like a white mark where you can
Oh
see the underneath of the
no.
card across it now and everything. I'm so annoyed.
It's like, oh gosh. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna deal with it because they're so stinking cute, and they work well with the this tarot. So I'm just, not really much to say other than it's a delightful time. And it feels like seasonally, like, I kept it to 2 weeks because I'm just like, oh, we're getting into the darker months, and I kind of want to move on to other decks. So did that in September. And then October, for Marlene's October Deck Fest, where she basically invited everyone to like work with whatever decks, however many, in whatever way. I worked with around 20 decks that month. Um,
Wow.
just like, playing around, doing a lot of like freestyle layered readings and such. And so that was a lot of fun. And I also, I used spreads, I used dice casting. It was playtime. So that whole month was a lot of fun, just to be very like maximalist with the decks that I was using, and like just pulling out whatever, no rhyme or reason. They didn't have to aesthetically match, just whatever I wanted to use. And it didn't necessarily have to be like Halloween themed or Samhain themed. But one deck that was new to me at that time that is like Halloween themed is the Jack-o'-lantern tarot.
Mhm.
So I just thought it looked fun. And it has a shit ton of jack-o'-lanterns. It gives Halloween, and yet sometimes doesn't, just with like, I feel like the color palette doesn't necessarily feel autumnal all the time. Because it's so bright. I don't know. But and like the people look kind of weird and like creepy-ish. I don't know how to describe them. There's like there's just a vibe. So that's what drew me to this deck. Um, I think I've said before, it's like I could see them in a Bosch painting, in a
Mm.
composition kind of thing. Like they're
Mhm.
just that kind of weird. So
This is the same artist who did like the Mystical Tarot and the Pre-Raphaelite Tarot,
I think
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he has a very recognizable art style.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if this is a long-term deck. We shall see, but it definitely it felt fun and just enjoyable for October. And then November, I did work with a few decks. A lot of my own decks, like Notorious JBG Oracle, my Swoopy Lenormand, Touchstone, man. Let me tell you, that deck. I actually, it gave me a very encouraging reading and
Mhm.
actually made me feel better. And also, I was like, okay, but do you have to bust my balls while you're giving me the message? Do you know what I mean? I was just like,
That is my exact experience with it all the time, and that's why I love it so much.
anyway, so that was a good time. But I would say the two highlights of November were just pairing my Everyday Witch with the Raven's Prophecy.
Mhm.
And again, what I would do with these two, it's like these would kind of be a lot of times my anchor decks that I would pull from first. And then I would just do like a cascading freestyle, layering more decks on top, or maybe throwing dice down or whatever. And it was just a fun time. And I just really love this pairing. This pairing has
Mm.
been one of my favorites, and I never would have anticipated that. On to books. So, Heather.
I mean, I read it a lot over the 3 months. I think I read like 25 books across the 3 months. I won't talk about them all. Some of them were short stories. Like I read a short story collection, which is I only count as one book. And then I read like Amazon do collections. They do collections of short stories with authors, and they did a Shivers collection, which I read, which was really good. So I read Natural Beauty by Ling Huang, which is about, it's a horror, but it's a very slow burn horror. It's about a Chinese American girl who is a pianist. Something happens to her family and she stops performing, and she gets a job in a cafe, and some woman comes in and offers her a job in a wellness shop as in retail, and she goes start working for this shop, and all the girls are given these supplements that they're supposed to take that is designed specifically for their body and stuff. And and weird things are going on in this shop, and she notices when she's taking these supplements that her hair is getting blonde and her skin is getting lighter, and she's starting to look like this other girl that she forms this friendship with. But this other girl that she forms this friendship with is a blonde, like white girl who looks like very almost Scandinavian in coloring and stuff. And you never really find out the girl's name throughout the book, but they start encouraging her to come up with an English sounding name so that it's easier for their customers to pronounce and stuff. And none of that is really the main story, but it's underlaid so brilliantly that it's very subtle but very strong, like the messages in there. And then at the end it just goes wild. It gets very wild, but it was really, really good. I think it was a debut as well, and for a debut it was excellent. So definitely one that I would recommend. I audio read a book called Scream With Me by Eleanor Johnson. This is a non-fiction, and it talks about domestic horror and how domestic horror throughout the decades have had something to say about the feminist concerns of the time. So it looked at things like, I mean, there were 6 films, I think. Yeah, so Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, Stepford Wives, The Omen, Alien, and The Shining. And it talked about, each one had its own chapter, all films that I've seen and love, and it talked about what was happening at the time those films came out and what those films were talking about. And it also talked, like it had chapters where it talked about how some of the directors of those films were not feminists. They were not good people. They didn't like women. Like Roman Polanski, we could talk about him for hours. Stanley Kubrick, he is renowned for treating Shelley Duvall terribly on the filming of The Shining. And she talks about how both of those things can exist in the same space. A very non-feminist director can make a film that has very overt feminist messages in it. It was so interesting. If you like horror and you care about feminism, I think it's absolutely worth a read. It was so interesting. I read The Blanks by Grady Hendrix. That was one of those 5 or 6 short stories, and it was terrifying. Like it was only like 50 pages. It scared me, and I gave it a 5-star. It was so good. It just had one of those endings where you finish and you just sit for like a good 10 minutes because you're just like, I don't feel good about the ending of that. Like I don't feel comfortable about, and you're not supposed to. It's a horror. Like you're not supposed to feel comfortable, but about this family that have this, obviously I can't tell you too much because it's a short story, but this family have this holiday home on this island, and there's these people living on the island called the Blanks, and there's something really weird about these people. And it's very much about the things that people are willing to accept in order to have privilege and in order to have access to luxury and all those kind of things. Like, again, it has this really strong message, but it's done through horror in a way that's really clever, which is one of my favorite things about horror, I have to say, as a side note. I think one of the things horror does so well is talk about society and problems or issues or just cultural things in a way that is so good. Oh, I also read City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which was really good. It was one of those books where it's all set in one city, and this city has basically been colonized by this nation who are trying to like outlaw their history and outlaw their language and suppress the people and stuff. And something happens that sparks a revolution. But it's one of those books where the city itself is the main character of the story, and you're kind of just dipping in and out of these different things throughout. It is fantasy. It's it's a fantasy setting. There's magic and stuff, but you're dipping in and out of these different areas within the city as they're preparing to fight back against these people. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it.
So speaking of reading more horror, I actually read a ton of horror in September and October. I'm not going to talk about all of them because a lot of them are ones that Heather has actually already talked about, because I get a lot of my horror recommendations from Heather. So like, for example, The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig, Heather's talked about. I read a lot of Stephen Graham Jones, actually. So one of them, again, The Buffalo Hunter, which Heather has already talked about, which is a magnificent book. It's a Native American vampire story, but like that's what tagline you could give it, but there's so much more to it than that. But it was marvelous. But
Julie, do not read that book.
I know. I want you guys to like I want you to mark off the pages I need to skip so that I can read it, because
I mean,
so bad. But I know it's so graphic and violent and gory and
incredibly graphic and violent.
Yeah.
And you would, I mean, the animal stuff, you would need to skip a good maybe 50-60% of that.
There's
book.
deeply upsetting animal stuff in that book.
It's
Like,
really bad.
like,
It's stuff
profoundly
like it was
emotionally upsetting animal stuff.
It's horrible. It was almost enough for me to put the book down.
Yeah. But I also read a couple of other books by Stephen Graham Jones, which I don't think Heather has talked about. So I will talk about those. One of them was Mapping the Interior, which was more of a novella kind of thing. I'm not even going to describe it. The first sentence is all you need. And the first sentence is about the kid. I can't remember the exact words, but the kid saying like he was so many years old when he saw his dead father walk from the bedroom into the kitchen or something like that. Like it. So good. And then I also read I Was a Teenage Slasher, which was, oh, you've read that one?
So did I. I read it in October.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. So much and that one is fun because it sort of posits, like it takes slasher movies and it like turns it's almost like slashers are superheroes in this book. Like it's like you become a slasher. Like you don't become a slasher because you're like a messed up person deep down. You become a slasher because you get infected with the slasherness, basically. It's also really sad, but it's a really, I don't know, it was a really good book. Stephen Graham Jones is amazing. I also read a ton of T. Kingfisher. So she has a bunch of books that are kind of set in the same world as The Clockwork Boys, which I still haven't managed to get the second book in that duology from the library yet, but I've read all of these other books that take place in the same universe. So one of them is Sword Heart, which is a story about a woman who, without wanting to, accidentally inherits the entire estate of her dead husband's uncle. She's a relatively young widow, and she's been taking care of her husband's uncle for all of these years. And then he leaves her his entire estate. He's like the wealthy member of the family, and that obviously means that her husband's entire family like descends on her to try to get her to marry another family member so that they can keep all the money. And she decides that her only way out is to commit suicide, basically. And because she's locked in her room, the family has locked her in a room, and she sees that there's this old sword hanging on the wall. She takes the sword down off the wall and draws the sword, and it turns out that the sword is inhabited by the soul of this like mystical warrior who like appears in the room and is now bound to her and is bound to save her life and to get her out of the bad situation and to help her figure things out. And it's a romance, obviously, and it's delightful. And then there is another series as well, the Paladin series. So the first one's called Paladin's Grace. Those are, again, take place in the same universe, and they all involve this sort of order of paladins whose god has died. Like they were all like berserker warrior paladins, but their god died and left them all bereft, like with nothing, like they have no connection to the divine anymore, and so all of their reason for existence is gone. And so basically, they many of them don't make it through that. Many of them are deeply damaged by that, obviously. But basically, there's a series of books that she's written about different members of this order of paladins, and the first one is called Paladin's Grace, and it's wonderful. So I don't know. I love T. Kingfisher. Like I've really been enjoying all of her books, and one of the best things about this particular world is that there's all these like little religions in this world of the Clockwork Boys, but there's a religion called the Temple of the Rat, and the Temple of the Rat is made up of people whose religious calling is to solve problems for people. So it's like a temple where all the priests are like badass lawyers and people who just like try to make the world a better place, and they're awesome. And so I don't know, they're really wonderful books. So highly recommend. I also read a book that is probably going to become like one of my like a favorite book of mine that I will probably go back to over and over again, and it's a book called Precious Bane by Mary Webb. Have you guys ever heard of this book? It's a classic. It was written in the 1920s, apparently. I had never heard of it. I randomly heard of it on a YouTube channel, and read it and loved it so much. It takes place like in the early 1800s. It takes place in England. It takes place
It's set in Shropshire.
Shropshire. Thank you. Anyway, so this book is about this woman named Prue Sarn who has a cleft lip and a cleft palate. And of course, back in those days, basically people thought of her as a witch. But she is just this remarkable person. And the whole story is about how her father dies and her family is sort of taken over by her brother, who she loves very much, but who is also a very like driven to the point of being emotionless kind of person, and who is determined to make their farm a success and become rich and, like be the kind of big man in town is like his whole goal in life. And then of course there's a romance part of it. It's just one of those books that the main character is so wonderful. It's so beautifully written, because it's all from her voice. It's from the perspective of a journal that she is keeping, and it's very much like I Capture the Castle. Have either of you guys read I Capture the Castle? Oh my god, another one of my all-time favorite books, which takes place in an entirely different time period but is very similar in a lot of ways. But I would highly recommend both Precious Bane and I Capture the Castle then, since you guys haven't read that one either. They're two of my all-time favorite books. So last book I'll talk about, Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, which was, it's been getting really mixed reviews. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Like, I thought it was so much fun. It's basically a story about two Cambridge students who are graduate students in magic, and their graduate instructor dies and goes to hell because he's a terrible person, but they need to go to hell to get him because, like, how are they going to have a career otherwise? And so it's basically, so they go to hell to get their advisor back. The whole conceit is graduate school is hell, which is absolutely accurate. But it also, it just like, it was a very enjoyable book. Like it was an interesting story. They're, the two main characters are like different, are like, neither of them are like completely likable. One of them is more likable than the other one, but they're likable in they're unlikable in ways that you sort of understand, and the journey that they go through in terms of like learning to trust each other and figuring out each other's histories and backgrounds, and all of that is very interesting. I don't know. I thought it was a really good book. Like have been really hating on it, and I don't entirely understand why. So I think it was good.
Well, speaking of horror and T. Kingfisher, one of the books that I read, I think would consider this horror, The Hollow Places.
Mhm.
Both of you read this already?
Mhm.
No, it's on my list.
Mhm.
So
It's actually on my Kindle, I think, saying that.
Yeah. So this is about protagonist her name is Kara, and she's newly divorced, and so she's decided to move back home, and she has an uncle Earl who has this museum of like oddities and like taxidermy. It's just one of those weird museums that also functions as his house, so it's like a dual building, right? And he offers to give Kara a place to stay there, and but then Uncle Earl has to go in for knee surgery, leaving Kara to look after the museum. And so while he's away, she notices like this strange little like hole in the wall. She can like kind of tunnel through. And she and what's his name? Simon, who's like her friend slash barista from next door at the coffee shop. Together, they kind of explore this space where they find this like odd, like bunker situation that leads to all of these alternate realities that are like hella creepy, scary, like they invade your mind, and it's just all this weirdness and creepiness. So yeah, basically the rest of the book is them trying to figure out, well, first how to escape once they have like dove in there. Is dove a word? Dived in there. once they
Yeah.
once they went in there,
Yeah.
how to escape the first time, but then of course like they have to figure out how to resolve this, what these alternate realities are. So to me it was like an enjoyable read. It was like, okay, I guess like horror wise, I wasn't really all that horrified, and I would say that to me the highlight was actually some of the more subtle moments of comedy.
Mhm.
Kingfisher is just really great at some of these like comedic moments.
Mhm.
With specifically Kara and her ex-husband. And I was just like cackling through some of these. And so those were the most memorable, not necessarily the horror scenes. And even some of those horror scenes, like given that you're in a museum of oddities, it was just somewhat like comical. And, perhaps that was her intent, but yeah. So it was okay, but I feel like I enjoyed Nettle and Bone more and Thornhedge more. So I guess more of the fairy tale reimaginings, or
Mhm.
perhaps novels or stories that would take place in like a different universe, or a
Mhm.
different world than more contemporary. But I'm not sure because I feel like I haven't read enough. But I like her narrative style and storytelling enough. Like I like it a lot actually, that I want to explore some of her other books. Another book that I read is Emily of New Moon by Ellen Montgomery, and I needed something wholesome
Mhm.
at that time. And so so Ellen Montgomery is of Anne of Green Gables fame. And so this story follows 11-year-old Emily Starr, and her father has just died. So she has to go and live with her relatives on New Moon Farm.
Mhm.
It's this Prince Edward Island.
Mhm.
And so her aunt, is it Elizabeth, is a difficult figure. And so as she's, living there and acclimating, she's having to deal with her relations with her aunt. And then just, it's a coming of age story. So, you see just her explore her love of nature and writing and the friendships that she cultivates. So I really enjoyed it. And also it was dark, that I mean, I was just like, I thought it would be wholesome, and it was for the most part, but there were definitely dark elements where I'm just like, I had to look at the cover. I'm like, this is Ellen Montgomery, right? Like,
Mhm.
but it was definitely enjoyable. So I do plan
Mhm.
on reading the other one. Okay, and then the last one I'll talk about is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. So this is another prequel. And this one focuses on Hamish Abernathy.
Mm-hmm.
So he is 16 years old in this novel. And of course, you know, he's District 12. And of course, he's been chosen to play in the Hunger Games. And then he finds out, oh, this game is in fact rigged. And so it basically just it gives you the context and his story so that you understand the older Hamish that we see in the original Hunger Game novels. I thought that compared to A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, this was way better. I did not
Mm.
care for the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I think I talked about that in a previous Three Girls
Mm-hmm.
where the ending really annoyed me. But yeah, so I did enjoy that one. All right, on to TV and film. Heather.
So what did I watch? I watched Haunted Hotel on Netflix, I think, which is an animated series. It's an animated series for adults, but it's about a single mother and her two kids who have inherited this hotel from her brother who has died, and her brother is still there, and the whole hotel is haunted, and it's just this really fun animated series about this family living in this haunted hotel and trying to make a business out of it. And there's a character who is like a 9-year-old boy who's possessed by a demon from hell who's really funny. It was a lot of fun. I think there's going to be a season 2, but it was just one of those things, when you're just looking for some like little half-hour light stuff to watch. It was one of them, but I really enjoyed myself. I finally got around to watching Thunderbolts, which I found thematically, I found it much heavier than Marvel films normally are. Like it was so heavy on like identity and belonging and it was just like I'm not saying Marvel films are stupid, but Marvel films generally are not very deep. And this one felt a lot deeper than Marvel films normally do. But I really enjoyed it. I still really, really enjoyed it. It was a fun film. I really liked all of the characters. It made me laugh out loud more than once. I just had a really good time. And then I went to the cinema and saw Wicked for Good with a friend of mine. Again, I had a really good time. I have read the book of Wicked. I've never seen the stage musicals. This is my first experience of Wicked as a musical. The book is similar, but also very, very different. If you haven't read the book, it is much darker and ends in a very different way than the musical does. I thought I really enjoyed the first one, and I thought the second one was even better. I just had a really good time. I liked the story. I liked this kind of redemption arc almost that Glinda goes on and stuff. I thought it was really well done. I liked the songs. I'm a sucker for a musical. Stick me in front of a musical and I'm happy for days. Like I'm just a musical person. I had a really, really good time. And I rewatched Wicked the night before I went to see Wicked for Good. And so kind of getting it back to back like that, I think really worked for me. I watched a horror on Netflix. And I watched it because of the week that you guys were in. So there's a horror called Thanksgiving. It's a slasher, and it's about it starts with a Thanksgiving sale where these kids are allowed to go in. Everybody's outside trying to get into this sale on Thanksgiving, which I don't know if that would actually happen. Like if places would open up for
atypical these days. There was a time when it was happening, and then people were so disgusted by it that Black Friday typically doesn't start until actual Friday. Now
it is set in Plymouth, I think. And these kids are allowed to go in first, and they're like winding up the people outside through the windows and stuff, and the people kick off, and this riot happens, and people die, and it's like a year later, and this character dressed as someone that if I was American, I'd probably know who it was. I don't know. He's wearing a mask and like a old-fashioned hat, and
he's dressed as a pilgrim, basically.
Yeah, he is, but he's supposed to be like an actual person who people would recognize the name of. Not me. Is killing off people who were in some way connected to this riot that happened a year before. When you find out what's happening, there is a moment in the reveal where you're like, give me a fucking break. How stupid do you think I am? That could never have happened. And I can't tell you what it is because it's a spoiler for the film if anybody wants to watch it. But there is a moment where you're like, no. And not because it's like something that the slasher is doing that's unbelievable. It's something about the motivation where you're like, really though? That, no. But it was, the kills were really gory. Like, he cooks one woman alive in an oven and then serves her up at a table. It was really, really gory. I mean, even for a slasher, it was very gory, but I had a great time because I love a cheesy, gory slasher. So I had a really good time. And then I followed it up with basically watching all 6 Scream movies, one after the other, which is my favorite slasher franchise of all time. And it wasn't as good as that, but it was good. It was like, it's bad, but a lot of slashers are bad. That's what makes them so entertaining. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, naturally, because of the time of year, I also watched a lot of Halloweeny stuff. Did my yearly watch of Over the Garden Wall, one of my favorite things of all time. I love it so much. Watched The Nightmare Before Christmas, another classic. I also watched a couple of horror movies that I had not seen before. I'm a big wuss about horror, and so I can only watch horror movies where either I know there aren't very many jump scares or I know when the jump scares are coming. But so I watched Sinners, which was amazing.
I've
So
not seen
good.
that yet.
So good.
So good.
And there are very few jump scares in it. There's only like a couple of actual jump scares in it. But it was a great, great movie. And it was almost more like it's almost more of a movie about music than it is a movie about horror
Yes.
in a certain way. And the music is phenomenal.
Culture and music.
Yes.
For sure.
It was so good. So loved that movie. I also watched The Witch, which I had never seen before. Loved that movie too. Again, very few jump scares, but just a great, creepy, well acted, super good horror movie. I really, really enjoyed that one. I also watched season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, which you guys both need to watch Interview with the Vampire. How have you not watched it yet?
I have it on my to watch. I do. I have it on my to watch.
Okay. So good.
It's just come on Netflix, so I can actually, because it wasn't on anything that I could watch it on, but it has just come on to Netflix, so I can watch it now.
Oh my God. It is so over the top, and so it feels like what Anne Rice novels feel like, I guess, is the way that I would put it. It has that sort of over the top gothic vibe to it, but also doing interesting things with the characters that Anne Rice didn't actually do. So I think I just think it's great. And so the first 2 seasons were both great. On the superhero movie side, because of course, watch all of those, I loved the new Superman. Actually, I watched it and then I watched it again immediately because I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun, really well done. It was really fun to see a take on Superman that wasn't that leaned into not the sort of dark, side of all of those superheroes that we've been getting, with DC for the last several years. It was an actual, it was a Superman movie. It felt like a Superman movie, that, was just really about a corny, good guy superhero trying to figure out how to be the best version of himself and how to save people and how to do it in a way that doesn't mess things up. And I don't know, I thought it was great. I had such a good time watching that movie. And then I also watched, I also watched Thunderbolts. I also thoroughly enjoyed Thunderbolts a lot. And then I watched Captain America Brave New World, which was very, very mediocre. But I keep up with Marvel, so I was gonna watch it naturally. So I watched that one first and then Thunderbolts. But had a much better time with the latter. But yeah, and then Great British Bake Off happens, in September. So naturally that took over my entire personality for a month, as it always does. And yeah, that was pretty much it for me.
So one of the movies that I watched, it was an international film. It's called Touch. and it takes place in Iceland in 2020 when the pandemic occurs. And so it follows this widower named Christopher, and he finds that he's losing his memory, and his doctor advises him that, he should try to finish unresolved business while he still has the mental capacity to. And so he decides to close up his restaurant that he owns and go on this journey through England and into Japan to find Miko, his long lost love of like 50 years ago. So this movie takes place in flashbacks. So we do go back to 1969, I think, where he is a college student. And actually, he's just quit college in London. And he decides to get a job as a dishwasher at this Japanese restaurant. And he falls in love with Miko, who is the restaurant owner's daughter. But they keep their relationship a secret because Miko knows that his father would not approve. And just in general, Miko's father does not approve of her having any relationship with anyone. And there are reasons behind that, which, you find out as the story unfolds. But there's a point where they have holiday, and then after holiday, young Christopher comes back to the restaurant to find that it's completely closed down. And Miko and her father have just left without a single word. So that's the last he saw of her for 50 years. And I really enjoyed it. It was more of a slow burn kind of movie, but I did really enjoy it. I did watch the first part of Stranger Things. Yeah, that came
That
out
was December. Was that December or November that came? Didn't that come out in
November.
December? Was it?
It's the end of November because it was like it coincided with US Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
It came
I
out like the
waited.
Wednesday
I think
before
that's
Thanksgiving.
why,
Yeah.
because I waited until December to watch it. That's
Yeah. So, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, the first episode, it was a little slow for me, and I'm just like, oh no, I wonder if this is going to be a really like mid-season and like, but no, it definitely picks up, and it was very gratifying and enjoyable. And now apparently with the rest of these episodes, they're each like almost 2 hours long. They're like 4 movies essentially that we'll have to watch is what
And they come out like 3 come out on Boxing Day, which you guys don't have in the States, but 3 come out on Boxing Day, and then the very last one comes out on New Year's Day.
Something like that. Yeah, there's a schedule where it's like 3 and then the 1. And I think the final one they're actually showing in theaters too, at least here in the States. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
I thought it was great. I mean, it was one of those series that I was yelling at my telly and my screen and everything. And there's moments, I sound really British, but there's moments where I'm like the very end of the very last of the 4.
The last,
get in there, son.
I was like,
I'm like, oh my God, I sounded so British.
That was amazing. I rewatched
so
that.
Good. It was so good.
And even Matt, who's kind of hard to impress sometimes, he was like, wow, that was really good.
Do you watch it, Sarah? Do you watch Stranger Things?
I do. I haven't started the new one yet because I want to wait until it's all out so that I don't have to wait.
See, I was gonna do that, but then I started hearing stuff about it, and I was like, no, because I am a fucker and I will spoil shit for myself.
Yeah.
So I had to get it watched because I thought I'm going to spoil it otherwise. And sometimes I don't care about spoilers, but it was one of those things where I wanted to see it for myself. So
it was so good. It was really good. Had a lot of fun with that. And then I also watched, this might've been in October actually, these two. October, it was like Nosferatu. I finally watched the 2024 Nosferatu movie with Bill Skarsgård and Lily Depp. And it was entertaining. It was fine. I know that there were mixed reviews, and I just thought, this is the mood I was going for. It is what it is. I think really the breakout performance was Bill Skarsgård as Count Olaf, whatever. Nosferatu. I mean, just his performance, over the top, yet in the best way that was suitable for the movie, in my opinion. I really enjoyed how he portrayed that character. Creepy as fuck. So yeah, it was good. I will say, in comparison to Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, that I also watched, I really enjoyed Frankenstein over,
Mhm.
like, just, I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
I,
That one is also getting really mixed reviews, though,
it
isn't it?
is, it is.
I've
And
heard amazing things about it. I've heard a lot of people say that it's actually phenomenal. So
I've heard both. I've had
yeah,
people say it's phenomenal, and I've also seen people hate it.
yeah.
Like,
I mean,
really hate it.
I think, I mean, Guillermo takes liberties. I mean,
Mm.
does reimagine the story while trying to keep the integrity of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the
Mhm.
novel. But he does try to also, make it his own, and I really actually enjoyed the ways in which his version diverges from the novel version. Like,
Mhm.
I enjoyed that. And just, it's, in typical Del Toro style, it is just a visual like spectacle,
I was
and
going to ask you about that, what it was like
it's
visually.
it is, well, I mean, you know what you're going to get with him, which is like,
Mhm.
it is going to be excessively violent and gory, and,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
then yet also parts, like, especially with the creature,
Mhm.
like, the makeup people just did a phenomenal job. I think the prosthetics just simultaneously, like, you know kind of uncomfortable yet beautiful at the same time.
Mhm.
To achieve that effect, it was just like, wow.
Mhm.
And so but yes, I mean, there's a lot of gore and a lot of violence, and yeah, so of course expect that. But
Mhm.
if you know his movies, then you know to expect.
I love Del Toro.
I
Crimson
do too.
Peak is one
Yeah.
of my favorite films of
Peak
all
is so
time.
good.
And
So
I
good.
love, and I one of the things I love most about that film is how beautiful it
It's
is. It's
stunning.
just such a
That is the thing.
beautiful movie.
He
Mhm.
is just able to do that. He's able to mix, like, the macabre with beauty, like, and just the way that he does that, interweaves that, is just, he's so creative. I mean,
Mm.
and, like, but also just, like, he's so good with, like, the horror aspects, and, like, Pan's Labyrinth. I watched that movie once and only once,
I've only seen it once too.
because I'm like, this is, like, the most brilliant thing I've seen in a long time, and also I can never watch this again.
Mhm.
Like, I am so like, I was, like, such a wreck after that movie. I
Mhm.
was like, I will, and I haven't since that first time. I haven't been able to, like, watch it again, but I can still remember so much of it. I don't even need
Mhm.
to watch it again, but
Mhm.
yeah, his films were great, and I personally really enjoyed Frankenstein. All right, so we're on our final topic, which is Wildcard, general updates, anything you want to share, go for it. Heather.
So I haven't done a huge amount in the last few months because I left my job and had a couple of weeks off, and then at the end of September I started a new job, and that has kept me very, very busy. It's in the same industry as I was in before, but it's a completely different area of that industry for me, and so the learning curve is massive, and part of that training means I'm traveling all of the time. Like, I have spent more time in Milton Keynes and Birmingham and Nottingham and Cambridge than I have done in the 43 years that I've been alive. Like, I've never been to Milton Keynes before, and now I feel like I live there. So that's been taking up a lot of my time, and it's the kind of job now as well where when I am working, I'm working like 10-12 hour days, and I'm constantly on my feet for those 10-12 hour days. Which is new for me, which means I'm tired all of the time. Basically, I've been really tired. The only other thing I did, in October, my old boss from my old job, who left before I did, has set up her own business, and as part of the work that she does, she's started doing retreats. So she did her first day retreat in October, which she called Awake and Create. And it didn't really sound like my thing, but I went along because she's my friend and I want her to be successful. So I went along, and there was like 3 activities throughout the day, and the first thing we did was art, which I suck at. Any kind of art, I suck. But it was paisley art using stamps and stuff, which was fun. Like, we were supposed to do like practicing on bits of cloth and then decorate like a tea towel or a bag or whatever. But I enjoyed it enough that I practiced on a bit of cloth, and by the time I was done practicing on bits of cloth, I was done. I was like, that was fun, but now I'm done.
Yeah.
So I didn't come away with a tea bag or a bag or anything. I was like, no, no. But so that was good. And then we did group singing. So it was all women at this retreat, and we did group singing where we did like short chant type songs in a round, and we did things. They had things when they were getting some of us to sing low and some of us to sing high, and then doing it in a round and stuff. That was the thing I was least looking forward to, because there's something really vulnerable about singing in public.
Yes.
And yet it was the thing I enjoyed the most. Like, it was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed myself. It was just, there was just something really powerful about being in a space with other women and just trusting each other enough to just sing and not care. And the woman who ran it was like, she's very much like, your voice is an instrument, and it, you know, it will make different sounds, and none of those sounds are wrong. You're never going to be off key or whatever. It's just your voice doing what it's designed to do. So just go with it. It was really freeing. It was honestly, it was really powerful. It was just so good. And then we did yoga, which was less good because I'm not very flexible. But again, it wasn't really, so the woman who ran that part of it, she was like, she doesn't really call it yoga. She prefers to call it mindful movement. And we did an awful lot of it was just standing up and feeling in our bodies, and, you know, breathing and feeling where we breathe and all that kind of stuff. It was just such a lovely day. The food was good, and it was like out on this country estate, so we had all this land around us and things. It was a really, really good day, something I did not think I would enjoy at all, and I had a fantastic time.
I feel like I've been busy. Work has been busy and has been sort of mentally demanding for the last several months. So I have also been sort of in that situation where I just kind of like feel tired a lot of the time, because it's just taking up a lot of just mental energy for me. And then I mentioned before, I've been working on all of these projects around my house, like just trying to, I don't know, everything had like, I just needed to get organized, you know, and once you start trying to get organized, you're like, okay, I don't have places to put things. So I need storage, and I need to do this, and I need to reorganize that, and I need to move this around. And so there's been a lot of just like hauling crap around my house, like moving it to different places to try to help me get organized. And so it's just been a lot of work, honestly. And I've been spending a lot of time doing that stuff. So, because it's been a lot of work. So I've been working on a lot of house projects. I will say, in November, obviously the week of Thanksgiving, US Thanksgiving, I had, you know, Thursday and Friday off, as often people do. And then my sister and brother-in-law and the kids came to town to spend the week up at their lake place here in Minnesota. And so I went up there for a couple of days also. And the thing was, though, is that they were remodeling their kitchen in the lake place during the week while they were there. So there was no kitchen. So, you know, so it was basically like a week of just, you know, like installing cabinets and doing the kitchen stuff. And then for the actual day of Thanksgiving, we went out to dinner at a restaurant that was having like a Thanksgiving buffet, and it was very good food. And it was also, weirdly enough, the first time I've actually really enjoyed a Thanksgiving meal in many years, because I don't know if you've had this experience, Julie, but if you cook or help with the cooking on Thanksgiving, which mostly the women in my family do, by the time it's dinner time, you're over it. Like, nothing sounds appetizing anymore, because you've spent all day cooking it and smelling it and tasting it, and so by the time dinner rolls around, you like fill up a plate of food and you don't even want it anymore. Whereas if you go to a restaurant, you're like, yay, food, hungry, you know, because you haven't spent all day cooking it.
Yep.
And so I ate a ton of food. It was amazing.
Yep.
So good. It was like, I was
That's
like, I haven't had a Thanksgiving meal I've enjoyed this much in like decades. Like,
Yeah.
it was, you know, I'm like, let's do this every year. This is great. Let's just go out. I don't want to deal with it. So that was really fun, and obviously seeing my sister and
Mhm.
brother-in-law and the kids was really fun, and my nephew turned 16, so we celebrated his birthday, and my parents also have their birthdays in November, so we kind of did a whole big, like, birthday celebration while we were up there as well, and yeah, it was really, really fun, so, but aside from that, it's really just been, like, house projects and work have been my whole entire life, so
We've had a lot of like fests in the
Mm.
last few months. So there was like Ren Fest in September, which was a lot of fun. And it's usually a yearly tradition that Matt and I go to Ren Fest, the Renaissance Festival. And then October, there was a Color Fest that takes place in the city called Thurmont. And I believe it's one of the largest craft fairs in the
Mm.
nation. And so I went with a few friends to that, and that was a good time as well. I mean, we spent basically the whole day there. And then there was also a Rocktoberfest that a friend was holding at her place. Her husband has a band, so they would play. They set up in the garage and they just played all night while everyone hung out, ate great food and drank and just hung out. So that was lovely. So yeah, it was a very social time because we did all of these fests with friends. We also visited the in-laws in October, and there was Matt's birthday in October, so more gathering with friends, which was great. This year he actually wanted to do something for his birthday. Usually he doesn't really care, so he and I will go out somewhere, but this time he actually like wanted friends and to do something. So we did that and had everybody meet up for dinner. And then yeah, for Turkey Day, we it depends on the year. Sometimes we have cooked, and we know because of the stressors of
Mhm,
what's involved in a
mhm,
Thanksgiving feast, we keep it really simple, stupid. I mean,
mhm,
like we're talking like only a few sides
mhm,
on top of like, and sometimes lately we haven't even been doing the turkey. It's I think we'll do some type of roast or a ham
mhm,
or something like that, or we'll just go to a restaurant. And
mhm,
this year we opted to do a restaurant, and
mhm,
we were so happy we did.
mhm,
And it was, yeah, a prefixed course meal. And what was
mhm,
great about this restaurant was that for each course you did have a selection to choose from.
mhm,
So if you didn't want turkey, you
mhm,
didn't have to get turkey. You could get something
mhm,
else, you know. So
mhm,
that was lovely.
mhm,
So yeah, November ended up being just more low key of a month, which was actually nice because I
mhm.
felt like there was a lot going on previously, and with the holidays now, there will be a lot of busyness. So that's pretty much it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for this catch up. We will be doing a Three Girls special guest episode with Marlena Teresa, and that is going to be recorded and it's going to be on Sarah's channel. So be on the lookout for that. And I believe that's it. Are there any other updates that you can think of?
No, I think that's it for now.
Wonderful. Okay. Thanks again, and we will catch you very soon. Bye bye.